What happens when a veteran sportscaster accidentally builds a video production empire? Mike Perlow went from covering the Red Sox to creating content for Dell, Subaru, and others, all without a business plan. His story is a masterclass in reinvention, brand storytelling, and building a business from scratch. I'm going to go straight into the first question, which is about your sports anchoring. So you started off as a sports presenter, and then you started running a video agency that serves global brands. So when you first left TV, did you have any idea that you were going to grow this business?
It's funny. I never even thought of myself as entrepreneurial. I don't know if I knew the word literally, but it wasn't really a word in my vocabulary when I was in my mid 30s when I started Perlow Productions. And when I look back now, I think I was always entrepreneurial as a kid, but it was really, trying to find that next career. What do I do with all of this experience in television and production and videography and editing and storytelling and all those things? And as some projects came my way, I started doing some different things. And then I had a website called getatvjob.com where I was helping college students and recent grads find jobs in television. And I needed a little section on there to put these other videos. And I called that section Perlow Productions. So I always joke the mother grew out of the child, because now Perlow Productions is the main company. And no, I mean, yeah, at the time, I think I always joke that I consider myself the unintentional entrepreneur, because I
Yeah.
really never woke up one day and said, today is the day I'm starting my own business. And some 18 years later, still going strong. I learned a lot. I knew a lot about video production and storytelling. I knew very little about running a business, and I've learned a lot about both over the years.
So let's go back to the 17 years in sports broadcasting. So how did you initially get into that, and what were you covering?
Well, so I mean, it started way back in high school. We had what was called back then a public access studio at my high school in my town I grew up in outside of Boston. And I think my junior year of high school, we started doing a talk show, me and two of my buddies, kind of like Pardon the Interruption you see today on ESPN, where we basically talk sports for an hour. And we did that show for almost 2 years of high school. And then I went to Syracuse in their Newhouse School of Communications and majored in broadcast journalism. And then after graduation, started applying for sportscasting jobs and landed my first job at the CBS affiliate in Burlington, Vermont, where I was part-time, then ventured to full-time as a reporter, videographer, editor, sportscaster, sports reporter, kind of everything. And over the years, worked at a station in the Fox affiliate in Fort Myers, Florida. My goal was always to get back to Boston and work on the air in Boston, which I eventually did in 2002, when I started working first at what's called New England Cable News and then New England Sports Network, Nesson, that broadcast the Red Sox and Bruins games. I was primarily working on a show called Front Row, which was a nighttime and morning sports news show. There's many more of them that exist now. And I was a fill-in anchor, but also primarily a sports reporter, and did that for a number of years. But it was amazing. I always said, like, I would have done most of that work for free. Whether it was, it was everything from covering, Little League baseball games to the World Series, to World Cup soccer games, to Super Bowls, to telling human interest stories about athletes from people you would never have heard of to people very well. And it was an amazing experience. I met a lot of incredible people. I love, like, what we're doing right now is my favorite part of my job as well, because I get to sit and talk with people and ask them
Yeah.
questions. And the funny thing is, sometimes I find myself struggling not to stick to the topic at hand with those people, because I want to ask them so many other questions. And sometimes we're interviewing them about something very specific. A quick story: interviewed a woman about 6 months ago for a senior care project, and she was a resident in one of these senior care facilities, and she had just celebrated her 100th birthday. Well, even though we mentioned it in the video, that wasn't really the focus of my interview with her. It was really about her experience living there. But all I
Mm.
wanted to do the whole time was just ask her about what was life like 80 years ago, 90 years ago. What do you remember but that,
Yeah.
but I love that. Like, I love getting to know people and hearing their stories and asking questions that allow them to do that. So just one big part
It's
of it.
amazing. It's one of my sort of passions, and I think I was a failed sports broadcaster. I never went into it. It was something, and this is probably where the podcast came in my life, was to scratch that itch of doing something in media. And I always think of myself. I wish at an earlier age I would have chosen television or radio to have gone into, but we make our choices along the way. So what made you leave in 2007?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, I was let go by the network. They made
Okay.
they went in a different direction, as they like to
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
But it's a reality of the business. I mean, it just is. I was even interviewed by a few newspapers in Boston afterwards, and I said that. I said, listen, if you can't handle being replaced by others that somebody think are better, different, whatever, you're in the wrong business. But at that point, I'd been in the industry 17 years. I was still looking for broadcasting jobs, ended up relocating from the Boston area to just outside of Philadelphia. And as I was looking for other on air jobs, I started building Perlow Productions. And I don't know, several years later, I kind of got to the point of no return where I said the broadcasting career is behind me and I'm full force on Perlow Productions. But, like you mentioned, everything I did in 17 years in broadcasting has played a huge role in everything we do now at Perlow Productions, because I mean, it's the storytelling, it's knowing how to ask good questions in interviews that elicit sound bites that are what tell the story of so many of our videos, whether it's a company overview video, a case study, a client testimonial, an animated video, but also um, helping people feel comfortable on camera, whether they are
Mm.
speaking to camera as a presenter or being interviewed, um, and being able to go through, like imagine taking one of your podcast episodes, and you probably do this in your own way for social media, but imagine taking one of your podcast episodes and having to pick like 60 seconds worth of comments from the person you interviewed
Yeah.
and putting them together into a production. Like that's what we do every day. Granted, it's not an hour long interview, but still, my point is that I'm very good at kind of going through those answers and picking the bits and pieces that we can weave together in an edit to then help tell that story. It's really been, I feel like it's been two careers, but two careers that have, complemented one another. And I think if I'd
Yeah.
done it in reverse, it probably would have worked in its own interesting way. But I think the order I did it in probably makes more sense.
Yeah. What was the biggest mindset shift that you needed to go into entrepreneurship, business owner?
Um, Well, I think it was, so I would say one of my great frustrations working in broadcasting, even when I was at a network like I was in Boston, was I never really felt like I had the ability to push creative ideas or direction with things in the big picture. Not that I could never influence anything, but like I was always an idea person and I just never had an opportunity to execute on a lot of my bigger ideas. And it's the exact opposite with Perlow Productions, because that's exactly what I'm doing every day is, clients will come to us with an idea, but sometimes they come to us and say, hey, Mike, we need a video that shows people what we do as a company. We don't know what to do beyond that. And so
Uh,
that's something I'm able to do every day. But I tell our clients, like, if you don't like, and when I say my, it's usually my and my collective team's ideas. That's okay. Uh, it's a very subjective industry, but um, so I think it was, you know, knowing that I could have that ownership of ideas, but also I think what I learned is that the determination that I had in my broadcasting careers. I joke like when I was a kid, I wanted to be an actor, and then I eventually decided there's way too competitive of an industry. So then I chose what's probably the second most competitive industry, which was broadcasting. So nice choice, Mike. But the persistence that I had in myself all those years going after jobs in broadcasting is the same persistence that served me well running my own business, which is, pushing through those really hard days and the times when you're not quite sure what to do or how to present something or how to handle when you don't win a project or when you do and you feel like you have all the pressure of the world on you because it's a really big opportunity. So I think it's all those things and being comfortable talking about the company and my team and myself in a way that is meaningful to people and makes them want to work with us. So I think those are a
So
few
what is the
things.
makeup of your what's the makeup of your team? So what sort of positions do you have in your team?
So, I mean, our team is all technically freelancers, but they're all men and women that have been with us anywhere from 3 to 18 years now. So it's a mix of, we have a lead animator who's been with us for almost, probably almost 17 years now, couple other animators. We have a team of about a dozen primary videographers and editors, graphic designers, and then production assistants, interns, etc. We have a couple of really great drone pilots. And it's kind of the nature of the industry that most people don't want to work full time at one place. They like the flexibility of being able to take on projects as they wish. So it works well for us. So when we're not crazy busy, we're not paying 15 salaries. But when we are, we have a big enough team that we can, manage the workflow. And I'm not going out and finding somebody as we land a project. Like, again, these are people that
Yeah.
have been working with us for a number of years, know me, know the company well. And I could tell you so many stories over the years of how they've gone the extra mile on shoots when I've literally said, "Hey, Brian, we have enough." And he's like, "No, we need 4 more shots." And it just shows like their level of commitment. They may as well be full-time employees, because that's how everybody on our team really approaches the work we do. And that's the kind of people I look for, because that's how
Yeah.
I always was as an employee. And so I think
Yeah.
that's the kind of people I look for.
Amazing. Um, are you tired of chasing clients and feeling like the only way to grow is to work harder and harder? Imagine instead having a steady stream of qualified clients coming to you because they know exactly who you are and why they need your help. That's what Christine Campbell Rapin is all about. Christine is the founder of Clear Acceleration Inc. and the creator of Turn On Your Waterfall movement. She works with entrepreneurs and business owners to cut through the noise, sharpen their messaging, and build simple systems that consistently attract clients without burnout and without gimmicks. If you want to discover how to stop chasing and start attracting, Christine has built resources and training designed exactly for you. Her work is trusted by business owners who are serious about creating consistent growth without the overwhelm. So here's what to do next. Go to the description below and click on the link and sign up. Take that first step today and start building consistent growth in your business with Christine Campbell. So Perlow Productions has worked with some major brands, Dell, Subaru. What was the process for you helping get those clients and turn their complex ideas into engaging video content?
So each had a different situation. I mean, in terms of, in one case, Dell was a client we landed through a referral to a company that they acquired. And then we got in the door with Dell after having done some work with the previous company, a company called EMC, which was a data storage company. And then we got a small opportunity within Dell and crushed it. And that opened the door for more opportunities. We did a lot of the work we did with Dell over the years was a lot of internal sales training videos. So finding creative ways to train their team within a specific division on how to best sell the technology. So we came up with a lot of creative ideas along with their creative team on creating interactive videos using animation. We did, for those who can remember the old video game Mike Tyson's Punch Out. I don't know if you remember that one, Mark. We
Yeah.
did an iteration of that. It was called, I forget what it was called, but it was like VX Rail Punch Out or something, and it was all like fighters in a similar, and had that same aesthetic to it, same look to it. And the boxers would be asked questions about the software, and if you got it right, your punch would land. If you got it wrong, you would get knocked out by the other boxer. So we did something like that. We did a game show called "Are You Smarter Than an Expert," where we had a live host. So we did a lot of different creative ideas there for marketing and helping sell their products. Subaru was different. It was more of a showcase of some new vehicles and updates on the company. I think, whether it's big companies like that or an area credit union or a manufacturing company or a senior care facility, we're always trying to find ways to showcase what they do. But what I find, and this is a problem I think most businesses, small and large, find themselves in, and most of them don't realize it, is when they do their sales and marketing and put that strategy together, they're usually talking more about why you need what they do or what they sell, instead of the real question, which is why, when somebody needs what you do or sell, they should work with you or buy your product or service. And those are two very different questions. We try to answer the latter question because, for example, using Perlow Productions, we do videos about the impact of video on sales and marketing, how it can help your sales and marketing strategy. But that's also indirectly doing marketing for our competition in video production, because we're saying you need video to help with your sales and marketing. But when we do videos that say, when you need high quality, well strategized video, here's why companies turn to Perlow Productions, that's giving the reasons of why you should work with us when you have that need. And so that's really a question we try to help our clients answer. And most of them struggle with it out of the box. And I often have to push them to say, and even say, like, pick up the phone and call some of your recent customers and clients and ask them literally, when you were looking for what we do, what made you choose us? And please be as brutally honest as you can be, whether it was price, your uncle knows the owner, you've bought from us before, whatever it is, small or large, that's important information, because those are the kinds of things we try to convey within a video or videos. And also avoid the cliches that a lot of businesses fall into. We treat every customer like they're our only customer. We're great on price. Whatever all those cliches are, I try to avoid as many of those as we can, because they don't really tell the customer anything unique about you. So when I say strategy, it's a lot of those little things that go into the messaging we put into our videos that ultimately make them successful, because people watch them. First of all, they look great visually, but then they leave the viewer with something to think about, or something, or all of a sudden something they want to buy or inquire more or learn more. So it's all of that goes into making a successful video. Again, whether it's a Dell Technologies or a local business. And I always enjoy having that conversation with businesses, small and large, even if they're not ready to do a video, because it's a hard conversation to have by yourself. And I'm not going to lie. Sometimes people get pissed off at me because I'm pushing them and saying to them that their answer wasn't a good one. I'm like, well, what do you mean? I've been saying this for 20 years. Well, it's time to change
That's
it.
your answer.
I literally had that conversation with somebody about 3 months ago when I was asking
Yeah.
him to explain the business to me. And after going in circles for 10 minutes, I figured he was like a new business. I said, so how long have you been in business? He's like, 25 years. And I was like, wow, you can't say to me in like a sentence or two what you do.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So it's just a reality. A lot of us struggle with that.
So why should people work with Perlow Productions? I'll ask you the question that you ask everyone else.
Well, I think hopefully a lot of what I just talked through is a big part of the reason. If you watch, we have a lot of client testimonial videos on our website. And if you watch and listen to them, 90% of what our clients speak about is not the quality of the video. And I don't mean that they don't think the videos are great. They talk about their experience working with us, with me and my team, on everything from, those tough questions that you need to answer to produce good videos, to the flexibility to roll with changes that happen in any environment, to being willing, and not everybody is, to be willing to, if the client says something as an idea of theirs that you don't think is a good one, to be willing and comfortable to push back and say, I hear your idea. Here's another option that I think might be better. Here's why. Ultimately, it's your choice.
Yeah.
But I feel it's incumbent upon us to say, here's the best approach we think you should take. So why people work with us? They want video. They want, most of the time, they want the project taken off their plate. They don't want to work with somebody that's calling them every other day with questions and ask them to do more work. So I take
Yeah.
that off their plate. Doesn't mean they're not involved, but I'm the one making sure everything is done, delivered on time, and done properly. They want a team that has great attention to detail, and it could be everything from making sure there aren't shaky, poorly framed shots, to choosing the right music, not just randomly grabbing a music track off of a royalty-free site. If you're choosing voiceover talent, I mean, who wants somebody with a British accent in your video? I mean, let's be
Oh,
honest.
come on. Come on.
But in all seriousness, thinking about that for every company, right?
Yeah.
Does a
Yeah,
British
yeah.
voice?
No, you make a good point. You make a good point, because you got to fit for the company as well, with the ethos and the background and the basis of that company. If you're talking to a Californian tech company and you've got an Australian accent, that's not a good fit, and that's I'm assuming is what you take off their plate, and you say, look, we've got this, we'll get the voiceover acted, because that was the question I was going to ask next. How do you help them work out what the right format is for that messaging? You do animation, you do live streaming, you do all these different services. How do you work out the right format for your clients?
So sometimes they come to us with an idea, and I will listen to it, and I'll say, I hear what your goal is here, and I hear what your idea is, and I don't think one is going to accomplish the other. I'll give you a good example. I had somebody come to me that it was I think it was like an accounting firm, and they had seen a business in their area that had a really cool drone video on their homepage of like the downtown area of the city they were based in. So they called us and said, we want to do something just like that for the homepage of our website. We want to have really cool drone videos of downtown, I don't know, Chicago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I said to him, I said, well, why? Well, we saw they did it. We think it's really cool. It'd be great for our website. And I said, well, okay, but what in the world are cool drone shots of your downtown area of your city going to do convincing people to work with your accounting firm? Where is the connection? And the more we talked about it, the more he realized, like, yes, it's a cool video, but it would provide nothing in terms of generating new business and clients. So I said, okay, so you want to show people why they should work with your accounting firm. Let's talk about that. So we talked about, interviewing key stakeholders in the company, maybe interviewing some of their clients, capturing visuals of where they work and how they work with clients, and suddenly the shift of the project was significant because he came in wanting a drone video. We ended up creating something very different. Another example is with a credit union. They came to us wanting a video, kind of a general what's a credit union informational kind of video, targeting like college students to just recent grads and really educating that young audience on what a credit union is. And we ended up pitching them on something very different, but with the same goal. We created an original animated character, this squirrel that they named Cash, that became like the spokesperson for their credit union. And the tagline of the first video, which they wanted to be edgy, was protect your nuts. So the double entendre of that. And the funny thing is, like, the credit union was the leadership was a bunch of older, very kind of conservative gentlemen. But the director of marketing got them to go for it. I would say it's the closest to anything we've ever done that's gone close to viral over the years. But the point is, again, we took a general idea and said, let's do something new and different that's going to be memorable. And by the way, educate that audience on what a credit union is. We did that very successfully. So every project is different. But it goes back to, do you want more of the same that's already out there, or do you want something different? And different doesn't mean ridiculous, right? Different is just different. And do we come up with a completely new and unique idea every single time? No, but we always try to put if we work with 3 clients in the same industry, we try to put different touches and different approaches to each video. So somebody might look at all 3 videos and say, those are all well done, but maybe it's not obvious that they were all done by Perlow Productions in a good way.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So when you started out with Perlow Productions, it was just you. So what was day one like for you, Mike?
Oh, I'm not even sure what that was or when that was. So it's funny. I started working out of my home years ago when I only had a 2-year-old at that point. And, my second son was born a year or 2 later, and then eventually moved into my office and then to a larger office where I am today. I'm actually not literally in my office right now, but in my office that I usually would be in. It's hard to point to that day one, but I just remember the first couple of years of, looking for clients to produce videos for. And I think realizing that A, finding business isn't easy, and B, running a business involved a lot more than I realized. One of my favorite stories is this was probably 3 or 4 years in. I met with a guy I knew who sold insurance, and we sat down. He educated me all about business liability insurance, which up till that day, I had no clue what it was. And he educated me on the importance and purpose of business liability insurance and all that it entails. And no joke, the next day, we happened to have a video shoot at a riflery range. So I'm walking around that next day without insurance in place yet, by the way.
Yeah.
Armed, excuse the pun, with this new information in my brain of the liabilities of a business. And we're literally walking around where people are shooting guns. And so I was a nervous wreck all day. Thankfully, we got it through fine. But things like that have come along. I mean, my first CRM was a bunch of spiral ring notebooks for years. I have a stack of them in my office until we eventually found a CRM. as many businesses have done, Excel spreadsheets were my QuickBooks for many years.
Yeah.
So, um, I think when you realize that you can't do it all yourself, no matter how small or big your business is, and you need to trust, and this goes for both the administrative work and in my case, the creative work, you need to trust other talented people to do the work they do well. And I'm a big
Yeah.
believer in that, which is I bring in people who are great at what they do. And that doesn't mean I don't have a voice in it. But usually if there's a difference in opinion of like a creative approach, I'm usually going to defer to them. I mean, sometimes I might have a stronger opinion, but usually if they say, Mike, this makes more sense, I'll say, okay, let's go to it. In fact, one of the things I love saying to my creative people is, don't be afraid to give me an idea that you think I'm going to hate, because what that tells me is they're trying something different.
Yeah.
But going back to that day one, I mean, I can't really point to the day one, but certainly early days. The one positive was I more formally started my business in 2007, which was when the economy was in the tank here in the US. And I
Yeah.
remember going to business networking events and it was like Dawn of the Dead. But I was like, hey, I just got a $500 project. That's more than I had last year. So, so back then, any business was growth over the previous year. There was no recession
Yeah.
in my head because it was new.
Right.
Um, but also, I had moved from a city in Boston where I knew a lot of people to this area where I knew nobody at the time. So I forced myself to put myself out there, do a lot of networking, get to know a lot of people. Not every business owner has it's not always their thing. But one way or another, I think when you start a business, you need to be willing to put yourself and your company out there and get yourself in front of as many people as you can. Um, and and I learned a long time ago, there's a big difference between promoting your business and bragging. Right? I joke with my boys that they, as kids or teenagers, and people in general, will never know whether we're killing it or getting killed in business. Because I'm a big believer in like always put a positive face out there. Things are always, always being optimistic and positive about business. When we land a big client, we treat it like any other client we land. Happy to work with Dell Technologies, happy to work with Joe's Pizza Shack, right? When we have a successful year, it's another successful year. We don't brag about our, any element of it. We'd rather let our clients do that. And I think people relate to that. People are happy to hear you're succeeding, but I don't know. I've just learned there's a fine line to that.
Yeah.
Uh, I think about anything in life, but I think when it comes to business, um, because anybody that's ever been in business has had those ups and downs. And so I think you do need to, a business coach I work with now, she always reminds me I need to celebrate my successes more than I do, at least with myself.
Mm.
But so I think being humble when you're having success and when things are tough, realizing that this is the nature of being in business and being able to kind of work through it and find new and different ways to build things up again.
Yeah. I think that's very admirable, and I love that sentiment. I think because yeah, no one wants to hear you bragging, but I think that's a great way to run a business. So we actually connected on a networking group called The Connective, and you touched on it there, but I want to delve a little bit deeper into what the role of networking has played for your growth of your company.
Absolutely. Well, I think it's played a few areas. I mean, an area where I don't think I expected was all the people I've met, specifically within the connective, but I'd say in networking in general, that have taught me things about business, about sales and marketing, about just running a company, about managing other people. Uh, I've realized that businesses are all very different in terms of what they do, but most of us have all the same issues, just on different levels. So that's when you hear, somebody in manufacturing have the same exact problems that you do in a video production company. It just makes you realize, okay, we're all going through the same things.
Mm, mm,
Um,
mm.
in terms of growing my business, I mean, first of all, it's developing relationships with people who hopefully will speak well of you, whether they've worked with you or just know of your work. Um, Obviously, when networking leads to the opportunity to actually work together on a project, that's fantastic. Um, and I also love networking with people that do the same thing we do or things that are similar. I could, sometimes network with AV companies or or other creative agencies or ad agencies, website development companies who provide complementary services to what we do. So it's good to get a sense of how they go about things with their clients, what new and different ideas they're using, how the videos we produce could complement what they're doing, and vice versa. I think it's funny. I know people in my business and others that all of their business comes through referrals. And
Mm,
I mean, that's amazing if you can run your entire business based on referrals. But I think networking is such a huge part of it. Uh, the other part of it is learning, and this is something we talk about in the connective all the time, is learning how to speak about your business and explain it to people without making them feel like you're selling them all the time. And we've all been on calls where from word one, you feel like they're trying to sell you, on what they do or their product or service. And that's a turnoff, even if you're interested in their product or service.
yeah,
So I think it's, learning how to say, hey, Mark, let me tell you more about Perlow Productions and the things we do. If there's a need, if there's an opportunity, it's going to come up naturally in the conversation.
yeah,
Um, so, but I think that, you know, you have to give before you can get in networking. So I think if you
yeah,
find ways you can help somebody else, that's the best way to encourage others to think of you the same way. And and I think that um, socially it can also be really good too, because sometimes when you're running your own business, it can be a bit of a lonely place, even if you have employees. So I think
mm,
talking with other people who are either running their own business or somebody high up in the business and hearing, just having those,
yeah,
conversations is incredibly helpful.
yeah,
Like this
absolutely.
one.
Yeah, absolutely, 100%. So you run a service-based industry, and I've always run service-based industries, and I know that I've worked with people in our business who build products, whether it's through manufacturing or what would you say? And have you ever reflected on the point of the difficulty with running a service-based industry and what the challenges are that are different for us than other types of business?
Well, in the case of something creative, we usually call it an intangible sale. So you're not selling a widget. So you can't go to somebody and say, "Hey, how many videos do you need? Do you want to place an order of 5 or 50 this month?" Right? It
Yeah.
doesn't work like that. So from a sales perspective, it's a very different sale. Sadly, when the economy is in a bad place, marketing seems to be the first thing to go with businesses, which, by the way, for all the business owners out there listening and watching, that is the last
Shouldn't
thing
be
you
the
should be
case.
doing. That's the last thing you should
100%.
be doing. And if businesses could realize that when things are tough, that's the only way you're going to turn things around, it would make
Yeah.
such a difference. Even I remember during the pandemic, I was on a lot of virtual meetings and events, and people would be so hesitant to promote or sell about what they did. They felt guilty about doing it. And I said, listen, if you have a product or service that people could genuinely use right now,
Mm.
why are you not selling it? Like, you actually have a bigger audience now than you've ever had before virtually. And I used to joke that it was like the Super Bowl of virtual events, because you would go on, there was so many people, the audience was bigger than ever. And so whether it was during a pandemic or when business is bad in general, those are the times to put more resources into your sales and marketing and make sure you're doing it right. Um, so, but in terms of a service-based business, I think um, when it's a want, not a need, as people often look at video, although I would argue it is a need, um, is like, I'm a believer. If I have to convince somebody that they need a well done video, they're probably not my customer.
Yeah.
So I think it's less about convincing somebody they need what you do, but showing them how it's going to help them and how working with you is going to help them. Um, and And that's what we try to do. We try to do it through, again, through case studies and client testimonials. We try to just do it through
Yeah.
the examples of showing people what we do. But it's an interesting question. I'm like kind of thinking about it as I'm speaking. But I think that people often shop based on price, which we're all guilty of doing that. But
Yeah.
when it comes to what we do, um, I think that could be a very dangerous, slippery slope because,
Yeah.
the old cliche of you get what you pay for.
Get what you pay
I
for.
mean,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, I've had clients where we've quoted the video for, I don't know, 15 grand, and they tell me they got a quote from somebody else for 2,500. And I say to them, I'm like, listen, you either found the one exception of somebody who's incredibly talented and doesn't understand how to price him or herself, or you're going to get a complete piece of junk. And then you're going to come back to me in 3 months having burnt $2,500 and looking to
Yeah.
do a video. I'd say about 85-90% of the time, it's the latter.
Yeah.
And
I would agree.
just trying to explain to people how, listen, you don't have to work with the most expensive option, but if you're purely shopping based on cost, you're approaching your process the wrong way. It's not
Mm.
like buying a house where you set a budget and I can spend 300 grand or a million or whatever. Okay, that's
Yeah.
based on some different factors. Um, but when it comes to things like, I mean, I love to use restaurant analogies. Would anybody walk into a McDonald's and a fine steakhouse and expect the same quality?
Yeah.
No, of course not, because you're paying two very different price points for two very different qualities of red meat, right?
Yeah.
Um, that same understanding does not exist with most people in my world, but it's one I
Yeah.
try to educate them on. That's not easy.
So no, no, and thank you for your openness about that question. What are your marketing strategies? So in a creative industry, you create video, you create a lot of digital marketing. What are the strategies that you use for marketing?
Honestly, I find the highest rated, most popular, most successful podcasts, and I become a guest on them.
You can
I'm
come
going to
again,
be on
Mike.
one tomorrow. So funny thing is, we were doing paid search advertising probably 12 years ago when not many people in my space were doing it. So we were definitely way ahead of the curve in that. Um, I was very, I use social media. We've always posted behind the scenes photos on. Back then it was just Facebook. Now on LinkedIn, Instagram, sometimes on TikTok. So showing behind the scenes of things we're doing on productions. Um, I uh, I try to get involved, being part of big events as we can, not just I'm not a big fan of like paying to be a named sponsor of something. If I'm going to do that, I'm doing it because I want to support the event, not because I think I'm getting marketing, impact
Mm,
out of
mm,
it. But trying to get involved in events where we can, for example, provide event video production services for the event. So when after the event, they send out an email to everybody that went to the event, thanks for attending. Here's a video recap from Perlow Productions. So I love doing things like that. We, because we're creating videos, it gives us a great marketing tool. So we're constantly, with our clients' permission, posting their videos on our social media, in our website portfolio. Um, we exhibit at some trade shows, although that has been a harder one to find trade shows that has the right audience for our services, but we found a handful over the years. So a little bit of everything. And we've also tried to carve out some niches within certain industries, and sometimes easier than others. But trying to we've never wanted to become, a video production company that works just in one or two industries. It's my opinion that most companies that do a service just in one industry, particularly in the creative world, their work tends to look a lot of the same. I know
mm.
website companies that have one industry focus, and if you see three different websites in that same industry, you could probably tell which ones they did because they tend to look
Yeah.
the same.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it's a mix of all those things. It is doing things like being on podcasts and trying to find other opportunities for PR when I can. Um, and going back to the networking, business networking is a good way. Really a little bit of everything. And I guess also I never shut up about my company. So wherever I go, whenever I find an opportunity to talk about it, and when I'm speaking with one of my bigger clients over the years, that we worked with for probably 6-7 years, was through a gentleman I met when my younger son was playing pee wee soccer on a team with his daughter. They were like 4 years old. We were just standing there at the game, if you want to call it that, and started talking. And he told me he worked for a company that did a lot of event live streams. This is before the pandemic, even a lot of webcasts and all that. And we ended up doing a ton of work for them for like 4 or 5 years. And it just came out of a random conversation at a pee wee soccer game. So you never quite know where opportunities come from. And that's why, again, if you go into a conversation with somebody just focused on telling them all about your business and what you do and what they should buy from you, you never get an opportunity to have a real conversation about, hey, Mark, so where do you go on vacation? Or what do you do on your free time? Or, oh, you play pickleball. Oh, well, whatever it may be. And that's where I find some of the best opportunities for partnership or just opportunities for work come from, is just regular conversations with people and hearing what they do and why they work in that industry. And, I just find all of that really helps
Yeah.
in
And it's the
open.
relationships, it's building relationships. And as you say, like, and I think that's why the Connective, our networking group that we're both on, we both value, is because it is about creating connections. It's not just when you have a one-to-one, it's not just here's 15 minutes of my pitch of my business and why you should be buying it. It is trying to build relationships and see if there's any sort of mutual benefit for either the service or equally connecting people in your network as well. So I think it is definitely important. There you go.
And I will say, like, while I love doing podcast interviews like this, it goes slightly against my nature, because in most conversations I would have, including with you, I would want more back and forth of me asking you questions about your right. So while I love talking about Perlow Productions, it's always like a little bit, it feels incredibly one-sided to me, because usually I'm one that would rather the other person go first and hear what they
Yeah,
have to
well,
say.
this is the thing. You're the host in what you're doing, aren't you? You're the one who's asking the questions.
Well, even just in a regular conversation, right? Like
Yes,
I, I, no matter how enthusiastic I am, I like it to be a back and forth. But obviously, in this situation, it's a little different.
slightly different. Right. How have you evolved as a leader?
Um, I would say in the early days, I was very much a micromanager, to the point where I joke about this with my guys today. I would literally stand over the shoulder of our videographers, looking through the viewfinder to make sure they were getting the right shot. Um, I think that was a mix of my own insecurities, but also not having developed the confidence yet in the people working with me. I have gone completely the other way, I'd say, for the most part now. Sometimes to my own, not to my detriment, because my guys and gals are great, but like, I really am very hands off on a production. I say to my team, like, I trust what you do. And sometimes they'll say, hey, Mike, do you want to check out this shot? And usually I will. But usually it's more just for like a second set of eyes. It's not because
Yeah.
I don't trust what they're getting is a great shot, whether it's for an interview or whatever else. But I'm more of an idea. So I've gone from micromanaging a creative process to being an idea person as part of a creative process. So I will say during a shoot, hey guys, I noticed this. Maybe we should get that. Or hey, how about we go get some of this now? Or let's set up and capture that. Or let's try, what do you think of this idea? So that's one thing, is learning to trust the people that you put in positions to do things. And also, I'd like to think I've always been like this, but um, calling myself out on my own crap, like not being, feeling you're too big to. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I've apologized to everybody from interns on up when I've not handled the situation right, or been too, sometimes I could be a little, my impatience gets the best of me, and I'm a big enough person to say, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't handle that situation right. Um, but that also goes with taking good care of your people. And it's little things like when we're on a shoot, making sure they have water, making sure they get a lunch break and that they're not stuck eating McDonald's, no offense to McDonald's, but like fast food,
Yeah.
okay, or whatever, like
Yeah.
getting them an actual decent meal, getting them something they want to eat, um, being respectful of their time, uh, understanding that we all have lives outside of our work, and sometimes that can impact how we're feeling
Mm.
that day or whatever. And the craziest story I ever had was I was on a shoot that was like 3 hours away from our offices, so we weren't down the street. And it was a just single videographer shoot, a 1 day shoot. And my videographer's wife was due like a month with her first child. And that morning, as we're setting up, he was like texting with her, and I was like, "Everything okay?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "My wife wasn't feeling great, so she went in to get checked out, whatever." Well, over the course of the next 2 hours, she was
Oh no.
going to be having that baby. So I was like, "What do I do?" Well, I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to tell him to not go, right?
Yeah.
So I said, "Go." He made it there in time for the baby to be born, and I just had to say to my client, "Listen, this is unlike anything I've ever had happen, but you know, his wife isn't due for a month. She's having the baby today. I'm sorry, but we're gonna have to reschedule the shoot." I mean, the client was great about it. I think
Yeah.
he
Yeah.
felt the same way I did, which was this is crazy, but like, what are we supposed to do? Right.
Yeah.
But we all know people that probably would have said, "I'm sorry, but I need you here."
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I could never do that in a million years.
Yeah.
Uh, and that doesn't make me a great person. It makes me a human being. But I think it's
Yeah.
just an example of how I try to, um, you know, I try to be cognizant of the fact that people have their own personal lives behind all the work they're doing, and some days, things impact their work. And I always tell my people, listen, if you're going through something, you don't need to share it with me if you don't want to, but just let me know that you
Mm.
have an issue going on so I can be aware of, okay, we were supposed to have this edit ready on Wednesday. We might need a few more days
Yeah.
or a week,
Yeah.
whatever it might be. Just,
Yeah.
and I guess that's the final thing is communication. Communication to me is one of the most critical things I can have in my personal life and my professional life. I'm crazy about it with our clients. I don't want them ever calling or emailing me saying, Mike, what's the status of our video? But I also say, like, if I email you something, have the courtesy of at least replying and letting me know you received it. Because in this
Mm.
day and age of so many emails, you never quite know if somebody got your email but just didn't respond, or got and forgot about it, or it went to spam, or somehow it
Yeah.
never found their inbox in the first place. So, that's a big part for me is, just technology has given us so many amazing ways to communicate today. And, it just makes the whole process of whatever we do so much simpler when there's clear communication.
Absolutely. Look, we're coming to the end of the interview. I ask the same 6 questions to all of my guests.
Okay.
They're quick fire questions, but they don't need a quick fire answer. And they've been
Okay.
described as thought provoking as well.
Oh.
So the first question is, what is the best decision that you've made?
Hmm. The best decision I've made. I think the best decision I made was to start my company in the first place. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was a good decision. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Next question. What's the best piece of advice you've been given?
Um, I think it's, that you can't, that you need to learn to delegate. You need to trust others to take on parts of the work you do because you can't do, especially as you grow, you can't do everything. So having the trust and the confidence to find good people to do certain things for you or as part of the process, and the confidence that they're going to not feel like, if you don't do it, it won't be done well. Realize that there are other people that can do certain parts of your work every day to free up your time to work on, the more important parts of your work.
And this isn't one of the questions, but it's just a follow-on question from
Oh,
that. Um, do you have coaches and mentors? Have you ever developed that as part of your business side?
absolutely. I mean, I have a business coach that I've worked with for about a year now. Actually, somebody I met through the Connective, and she's been a great help to me. And then mentors, yeah, I've had a lot of different mentors over the years. I mean, people in my broadcasting career who definitely were mentors over the years. And then different business owners, and not necessarily people that work in creative or video production, but just other business owners who I've spoken to and again heard their successes and failures and their unique perspectives. So yeah, it's to me, I mean, there's nothing better than gaining, using the wisdom of others who've been there and done that. Now I guess I'm kind of one of those people for other people, but I still feel like I have a lot to learn after 18 years. But yeah, I think if you don't have mentors, if you don't have people you're turning to for guidance and advice, you are A, clueless about the realities of life and business, and B, missing out on so much knowledge and experience that they have that you don't, no matter how many years you've been doing it.
Yeah. Next question. Who's the person that's helped you most in your career?
Are we talking specifically with Perlow Productions or just like my full career?
Well,
My
either.
both?
No,
Okay.
both.
So um I mean, my dad has been gone for about 18 years now, but I would say that my mom is still with us. But my parents absolutely, like, they were huge supporters of me in my broadcasting days when most parents would have been like, your kid's going to do what? He's going to be a sportscaster. Um, and, unfortunately, my dad passed in the early years of my company, but my mom has still continued to be an amazing resource because, you, um, again, keeping you humble when things are going well, but also helping you stay strong when things aren't as good. And she's always been that very supportive uh, person for me in my life. Um, so yeah, I think it started with my parents, and they had very different personalities in terms of life careers, but uh, I think I got the creativity from my mom, the determination from my dad, although my mom's a pretty determined person too. But and ironically, my dad was a physician, but he always had, which I had no interest in medicine, but he had a great head for business. And sadly, it wasn't until he had passed and I was kind of starting my company that I suddenly realized, like, okay, wow, I didn't get any of the book smarts from him that he had as a physician, but like, I
Mm,
definitely got the business brain. And
amazing.
so, yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Tell me about a regret that you have.
Um, wow. Do you have 10 minutes? I don't know. A regret I have. Um, I guess, you know, maybe I wish I had known more about some of the like ways to better structure and run a business I don't know if it's really a regret because it's not like I think I should have gotten an MBA or something like that. I've had that conversation with people. I I don't know if it's a regret, but I wish I had a stronger foundation of business operations knowledge when I started. I think it took me a while, in some cases even more recently, but took me years till I was using our CRM. It took me years till I was using QuickBooks. It took me years till I had a more formal business approach together. I think it was a lot of like, kind of throwing it together as it happens. And even though I had success, um, I think had I had more of that knowledge early on, it would have made me better earlier. But I don't know. I kind of feel like it was the path I was put on, and I don't know if it's so much regret as just if I could do it over again, I wish I had that.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess yeah, I don't know. I guess going back to my patience, which has not always been my greatest asset. Me being a little bit more patient early on with certain things. I think I've become much better at that now. But yeah, I don't have many regrets. I mean, I've tried some things that were risky in terms of would it work, would it not? I don't regret the things that didn't work, and I don't look back and say, oh, I was a genius for the ones that did. I'm glad I took those chances, and I still continue to take chances when I think they're smart chances.
Mm.
And so yeah, but yeah, no, I don't know if that answers
Got
your
you
question,
thinking,
but
hasn't it? That's got you
yeah,
thinking, Mike.
absolutely. Absolutely. When you have me not talking, not saying much,
That
you've asked a good question, Mark.
that's what these questions are for. Um, Next question. Was there a time that you wanted to give up, and what pulled you through to continue?
Oh, yes, many. Many. Yeah, because, um, yes, there have been many times where I've said, boy, it'll be a lot easier just to have a regular paycheck. Uh, One of my favorite expressions about owning your own business is when it's good, it's great. When it's bad, it's awful. And that kind of summarizes things. And, particularly in the early days when I had young children and, trying to support a family and all that, the down days are tough. And the early days of my business, I mean, years ago, summertime was Deadsville for us. We had very little business. That's changed. But so the summer months were very hard for a number of years for me. Um, and I sorry, I just lost the train of thought on the question. The question was about oh my
Pulling
god,
through.
yeah, pulling through. Right, yeah. Sorry, I was getting too deep. So what's pulled me through? I think it's you have to have that persistence of realizing that um, you know if you're going to give up that easily, you're probably in the wrong world, right? I mean, rejection is part of I mean, nobody just succeeds all the time. The old, Michael Jordan, got cut from his junior varsity
Yeah.
basketball team, right? That
Yeah.
analogy, right? Uh, and I think so. So personally speaking, I'm a huge fan of Elton John, and his song "I'm Still Standing" has been like my lifelong theme song. So
Love it. Yeah.
sometimes I'll put that on because it just kind of reminds me of no matter how much crap is thrown your way, you just got to get back up and keep trying. So I think it's that internal fortitude because I'm not one, going back to the you'll never know if I'm crushing or getting killed. I'm not one that believes in like whining and moaning to other people outside of like my very immediate family circle about we've all seen that where you're talking to somebody they just can't stop complaining about how tough business is and this and that and it's just such a turnoff. And so to me, I don't believe in listen. You could say, hey, it's been a little bit of a slower year, this or that, but I think just keeping a positive mindset and realizing that it's not gonna get better if you just sit there whining about it.
Yeah.
So what can you do to fix it? And sometimes it's beyond your control. Sometimes it is more within your control than you realize. And also looking back at other times, like looking back at the last time you felt like that and what changed, and realizing that that will happen again. And hopefully, the downs will be less and less frequent. And but it's not easy. I mean, I think what is it? Most businesses don't last 3 years or 5 years or whatever it
5
is.
years, I think it is, yeah. I think 80% of businesses fail in 5 years.
And I think part of it is just it's not successful. But I think part of it is a lot of people just it's tough sticking it out after a while,
Yeah.
right? And some people can't do it financially, some people can't do it emotionally. Um, and I will tell you, just as like assessing my business in now, like one of my goals for the next 3 to 5 years is to find some ways to take less of the burden off myself for the day-to-day prospecting and business development, because that is one of the more stressful parts of running a business. And I really love all the creative and the strategic and the client management. And I'd like to be spending more of my time doing that and a little less of my time on the prospecting end of things. So it's one of the things we're working on now is how do we put a plan together that allows that to happen. It's not an easy
Amazing.
question or answer, but
No,
it's something we're working on. So
amazing.
yeah.
Right, next question. Tell me something that most people don't know about you.
Oh, that's an easy one. Um, and it is on our website, but I'm guessing most of your audience has not been to our website yet. Hopefully they will now, perlowproductions.com. Um, when I was working as a sportscaster at Nesson in Boston, and I'll try to keep the story short. It's a longer story. Uh, I was working on air there in 2004, where if you're a baseball fan, you may remember it was an historic season for the Red Sox, where they won the World Series for the first time in 86 years. Well, after that season came and went, it turned out that Stephen King, who's from Maine and is a big Red Sox fan, before that season, and only people like Stephen King get this kind of crazy luck.
And this is the
Before that,
author, Stephen King.
yes, this is the author, Stephen King, correct, decided to co-author a book about a season of Red Sox baseball and somehow chose the most historic season in a century. And it turned out he was also an avid viewer of Sports Desk, the show I worked on, and was a fill-in
Wow.
anchor on. And he mentions me by name a number of times in the book. There's one of the best quote, including me, is in the About Us section on my website. So you can go there and read. If you go into the company page and then look for my profile, and then in the middle it has a fun fact, Mike Perlow, thing. So and then so friends of mine started seeing it, told me about the book, and then I saw the book, and then a few months later there was a baseball authors tour at Fenway Park in Boston that I covered for Nesson, and he was there as one of the authors. And I went
Right.
up to him. I was like, "Hi, Stephen. I'm Mike Perlow." And he's like, "I know who you are." I said, "You're Stephen King." Now that was 20 something years ago. I don't know if he'd recognize me if I walked up to him today, but
Yeah.
I always joke, it's proof I existed, but it's just a very, it's a cool
That's
story.
very
And
cool.
who can say they're, in a Stephen King novel, right? Like
That's
that's just
amazing.
is,
That is
even if
very
it's still a
cool.
horror story, it's still, pretty cool. So there's,
Amazing.
yeah.
And the last question is, what does legacy mean to you?
Oh. Well, it's funny you asked that, because we actually produce legacy videos, and I don't want to get into all that, but it's around that same concept, which is, telling people stories. I think, um, I don't know. I feel like my, this is going to sound kind of corny, but I almost feel like my legacy is less about video production, even though I'm very proud of all that we've done for so many different businesses and nonprofit organizations, all that. But it's really kind of more like the lesson of determination of anything you do in life. And I try to teach this to my kids, that just because something doesn't work out or you get knocked down, um, that the determination I've taken to really both of my careers, that I know has gotten me much further than others would have. Um, I think is just such an important trait in life. And so I'm very proud of the determination I took to get myself all the way to a major market in Boston as a TV sportscaster, and to run a successful production company for now 18 plus years, hopefully many more. So I think the legacy is more of like that hard work, determination, and not giving up just because times aren't always spectacular.
Yeah.
Um, and hopefully we've helped some people, some businesses, some causes, and all those things along the way to be stronger themselves, and fight that fight themselves.
Yeah. And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you or find out more about your business?
Yeah, so you can find our website, perlowproductions.com. We're on pretty much every social media platform: LinkedIn, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Um, you can contact me personally, Mike at perlowproductions.com. Our phone number is also on our website. You're always free to give me a call. And I just, in general, I would offer to any of your listeners and viewers that um, I'm always happy to just talk about a business's approach to sales and marketing, how they may already be using video or may not have ever used video. I'm not looking for somebody to contact me only if they're ready to buy. I really find some of the best conversations are just around, this is what our business is, this is what we do, this is what we've tried to do in terms of our sales and marketing, and sharing things that we've done with other companies that in some cases are similar to them, some cases are very different, but a similar approach might work. And the other thing that we've rolled out more recently is helping companies with their YouTube channel. I see a lot of businesses that have a YouTube channel, sometimes that have many videos, and is really a wasted asset. They have a handful of subscribers. They have videos that have been up there for years with a small amount of views. And usually, it's not that quality doesn't matter, but usually the reason their content isn't succeeding is less about that and more about the fact that they're not even getting it in front of anybody. So whether it's good or bad is almost irrelevant, because the strategy around their YouTube channel is lacking. And so that's something we're starting to help both our clients that we've done videos for with, and companies that have a YouTube channel with videos and want to figure out how to make better use of it, because that should be a lead tool for your company. It should be,
Yeah.
you should have ways of getting people to see that content, and that content should be driving new business opportunities for you. And in a lot of cases it's doing neither. So we can help any business, small or large, with that as well.
Brilliant. Right, a big thank you to Mike Perlow for sharing this incredible journey from life behind the sports desk to building a powerhouse video production company. Whether it was his unexpected leap into entrepreneurship or the way he helps brands tell more powerful stories, I'm sure you got a ton of takeaway from there. If you're thinking about using video to elevate your business, please do go to Mike Perlow's website, which is perlowproductions.com. If you're enjoying this episode, don't forget to follow or subscribe and leave a quick rating or a review. It really helps us reach more businesses with our show. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next episode of Business Growth Talks.